I'm John McKee, editor of Messianic Apologetics, Messianicapologetics.net. And I would like to welcome you to this episode of Messianic Insider, your theology and news roundup for April the 21st, 2025. Before we get into some of our material, I would like to go through a few brief announcements. Please, if you have not already, go to messianicapologetics.net, and you can see here in the right-hand column blog notifications. Be automatically notified by email when Messianic Apologetics is updated. Put your email in there, hit subscribe, then you'll be asked to confirm. This is different from our email announcement list, which you can also subscribe to via the envelope icon right there. When we post something on our website, when we reintroduce something which has been temporarily pulled back, this is where you get an alert about it. And this is different from our email update list where we have to formally put something together. But if you want to get notified when new things go up on the website, please go ahead and do that. And I'll continue to announce this every week. Okay, another thing, as you have noticed or possibly seen already, as we have relaunched Messianic Insider 5 times a week, starting last week, at the conclusion of every episode, the episode is processed and split up into various shorts. That is done automatically with the streaming software we are using. Those shorts anywhere from 20 seconds to 90 seconds. And then those are reposted to YouTube and Instagram. On YouTube, the shorts are linked to the full episode. Instagram just gives us exposure. But those do give us not just exposure, but a lot of exposure, like hundreds of views, in some cases, thousands of views, depending on what it is. We haven't been posting those to Facebook yet. I haven't decided about that. But if you run across a short, it's most likely going to be from an episode of Messianic Insider. Okay, starting with our theology roundup for today. The subject of the Greek Septuagint. Last week, we discussed the controversy of the counting of the Omer between Passover and unleavened bread and Shavuot, more commonly known as Pentecost, and how in Leviticus 23, the Septuagint version gives a testimony to the traditional Pharisaic method of counting the Omer. Now, what is the Septuagint and how should we be approaching it in our theology? The Septuagint is the ancient Greek translation of the Hebrew Tanach, or the Old Testament. We have an FAQ entry on the Messianic Apologetics website. So here, go to messianicapologetics.net, see the FAQ tab, click that. These are all listed in alphabetical order. Scroll down to the letter S. So you see Septuagint. Click that. A PDF file will open up. Why do you consult the Septuagint frequently? This summarizes some of the theological importance. And then if you scroll down a little bit, you'll also see another question. I understand that the Greek Septuagint is a valuable resource for understanding Second Temple Judaism and for reading the Apostolic Scriptures, and that there are some differences between the Septuagint and Hebrew Masoretic text of the Tanakh. Are there any English translations of the Septuagint which can help me in my studies? So this FAQ on the Septuagint is something you should access in your free time. For anyone in biblical studies, we take the Septuagint for granted because we're trained in Hebrew, we are trained in Greek, we're trained how to use the traditional Hebrew Masoretic text used throughout the Jewish community. We're trained in how to use the Greek New Testament, the Greek Apostolic Scriptures, and how to access the critical apparatus, where you will see different textual variants, but also significant quotations or allusions to the Tanach, the Old Testament, most frequently, but not always, in its Greek Septuagint form. The Septuagint is the ancient Greek translation of the Hebrew Tanakh, and I have my Septuaginta, my academic version of the Septuagint, right here, and I've had this since my seminary days. So I've had this version for over 20 years. It stayed in pretty good shape. As it regards the origin of the Septuagint, what we call the Septuagint, you will see that the customary account is of how Ptolemy wanted a Greek version of the Jewish scriptures for the library at Alexandria. So this is several centuries before the arrival of Yeshua of Nazareth. According to ancient tradition, 72 Jewish scholars translated it from the Hebrew, and each version was the same. And this is why the Septuagint is frequently represented or abbreviated by the Roman numerals LXX, which of course is Roman numerals for the number 70. The Septuagint was a part of Second Temple Jewish literature. So on that basis alone, anybody who engages with Second Temple Judaism, the Septuagint is one of the significant bodies of literature to be consulted, among others. Now, the Septuagint does play an important role in theological examination. In places, for example, where the Hebrew Tanakh, the Hebrew Old Testament, is imprecise or unclear, the translation of the Greek Septuagint might be able to offer some assistance. So when you see some Christian translations of the Old Testament, depending on which one you're accessing, there might be some consultation with the Greek Septuagint. So while on the whole, the English translation will come from the Hebrew Tanakh, where the Hebrew is unclear, it's imprecise, the Septuagint may have been consulted in various places to offer a clue for the English translator. Now, the most important place that the Septuagint has for anyone in theological studies is doubtlessly how it is quoted or alluded to many, many times throughout the Greek Apostolic Scriptures, the Greek New Testament. For example, when looking at an Old Testament quotation in the New Testament, and then looking up that quotation in your Old Testament, how many times have you possibly considered that, has this New Testament author misquoted from the Hebrew Scriptures? Because I don't see that they fully aligned here. Are you really seeing a misquote? Or is it more likely that the New Testament author has quoted from what? The Greek Septuagint. And perhaps his argument whether it's about the messiahship of Yeshua or some other issue, has taken into account the theological value judgment made by the Septuagint. An excellent example would be Isaiah 7:14. The Hebrew, of course, is the term Alma, meaning young woman or possibly virgin. But in the Septuagint of Isaiah 7:14, you see the rendering Parthenos, meaning virgin. And of course, Parthenos is what is referenced in the Gospels. The virgin shall conceive. So that's an obvious example of where the Septuagint plays a role in one's theology. Perhaps not as obvious, but very important. Many of the unique arguments made by the author of Hebrews are made using some of the variants one will encounter in the Greek Septuagint. And a knowledge of the Septuagint as a part of Second Temple Jewish literature is vital for any responsible biblical examiner. Today's Messianic community, and I mean this with all the love and respect in the world, from time to time has run into some problems because not a huge amount of emphasis is placed on Greek language studies as it is on Hebrew language studies. And along with that, there can be very little experience engaging with the perspectives of the Septuagint. So the Septuagint, very, very important for anybody in biblical studies, and it's something which I have been accessing for well over 20 years now. Just because I've had this copy since my seminary days, I was familiar with the Septuagint before that. The first time I ever heard of the Septuagint was actually in 1995 in ninth grade at the Christian school, hearing about the development of first ancient civilizations which preceded the Israelites, so the Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, then learning about Hebrew civilization, and then learning about the influence of classical Greco-Roman civilization and its impact on Judaism, and then, of course, Christianity. So I've known about the Septuagint for quite a while. Now, there are a number of Septuagint resources. I just have a brief stack here. If you are a congregational leader or teacher, you don't have some of these, you should consider getting them. A number of them are listed on the Theology Resources tab at MessianicApologetics.net. Okay, so I've shown you this is an academic version of the Greek Septuagint. Here's a resource. I don't use it that frequently, but I've had it for a while. It's a Greek English lexicon of the Septuagint. Now, a Greek lexicon like that of, for example, BDAG, the Bauer, Danker, Art, Gingrich, that focuses more on the New Testament and Christian literature. There's some emphasis on the Septuagint. This is going to focus on the Septuagint as well as its relationship to the Hebrew Tanach. Now, with every lexicon, it all depends on what Bible passage you're accessing, what is connected to this or what's connected to that. But if you're expanding your resource library, you already have lexicons like BDAG or Liddell Scott. That would be a good tool to have. Now, the first printed copy of the Septuagint I had, so this would go back to probably the year 2000, was the Septuagint with Apocrypha by Brenton, Sir Lancelot C.L. Brenton, or L.C.L. Brenton. Now, this is dated to the 19th century. This does include the Greek Septuagint, and it also includes Brenton's English translation of the Septuagint. And as it implies, it also includes the books of the Apocrypha, which are part of the Septuagint as well. His English translation was the first real introduction I had to delving into some of the unique renderings of the Septuagint. I got this right before taking classical Greek in the fall of 2000 at the University of Oklahoma. His English translation does employ some Elizabethan period English, but it helped me get my feet wet with the Septuagint. Now, later in 2007, a more scholarly English translation of the Septuagint was released, a new English translation of the Septuagint, published by Oxford. This is probably at the exact opposite end of the spectrum from Brenton. Many of the proper names are transliterated from Greek. So you've got names which originally, of course, appeared in the Hebrew Tanach, the Hebrew Old Testament, and then their Greek transliteration. But this is a resource I've used many times since I picked it up. And I would say this is something you need to have a lot more than Brenton. And it's sort of become the academic standard, I think, today. Now, along with that, 2019, the Lexham English Septuagint was released. And this is probably a lot easier to access than the version I've just shown you. So this uses more standard English terms. This is a resource. This is a resource that I don't use it as often as this one, but I do use it. Okay, so we have a quick question. Are you linking these studies for others to use? Are they in an Amazon link you use? Okay, so very quickly, let's go to MessianicApologetics.net, and I'll show you, if you want to find some of these things, where you can find them. Okay, so here you see Bible study tools. Immediately underneath that is the tab Theological Resources. And this is where you can find most of the resources I'm referring to today. So Theological Resources, scroll down to Greek language resources, and most of these are listed. So you can just find them and they'll be linked to Amazon. So you don't have to do all of the searching for where you find these. Okay? Okay. I know some of you all, comment, but you don't want necessarily your name posted live with your little icon. That's okay. But I will take into consideration some of the questions you have during our stream today. Okay, and then finally, and I've had this for a while. Let me see when it was released. I don't access it that much. In fact, some of you may be aware how a lot of the books on my shelf are double stacked. So this was stacked behind some books. Okay, so this came out in 2008, and this is the Orthodox Study Bible. So this is from an Eastern Orthodox, Greek Orthodox perspective. The Greek Orthodox Church widely uses the Septuagint as its, I would say, main scriptures. So this is an English translation of the Greek Septuagint, although I think it probably used Brenton or consulted the Brenton version. And this is another perspective. I haven't used it that much, and I don't know as much as I probably should about the Eastern Orthodox tradition. But if you're looking for Septuagint resources in English, these four right here that I've already shown you. So we got Brenton. This is how I got my feet wet back in 2000. We've got a New English translation of the Septuagint. This is probably the one I access the most. And then you've got the Lexham English Septuagint, which is more readable than the New English version. And then you've got the Orthodox Study Bible. Okay. And of course, with most Bible software packages now, you should be able to have what the most important thing is, which is the actual Greek Septuagint itself. And frequently, although not always, various Bible software platforms will have a special edition where you have both the Septuagint as well as the Greek New Testament as a single package, so you can do searching of, I'm looking for how a term appears in this Bible passage of the New Testament. Does it also appear in the Septuagint as well? So that's very, very useful. Okay, so that finishes our theology roundup for today. The Septuagint is a very important part of one's examination of Holy Scripture, helping with where the Hebrew is unclear or imprecise, and also how in the apostolic writings, when you see a Greek term used, what some of the possible or likely Hebraic background is for it. An excellent example would be how the term eirene, meaning peace, in an entirely classical context would mean just an absence of war, whereas with a Hebraic background of shalom means something much deeper. Peace, tranquility, harmony between God, man, and the creation, a sense of wholeness. So while in the apostolic writings, again, depending on what passage you're reading, there can be classical Hellenistic background of a term being employed. More frequently than not, when a Greek term is employed via the Septuagint, you should be able to deduce what Hebrew term plays into its definition or usage. And a word like peace, eirene, having a background with shalom, is a very important example of that. Okay, our news roundup for today, April the 21st. There's a lot going on in the world, especially over this past weekend. For millions of Christians across the planet was Good Friday and Easter Sunday. Now, in our news roundup, we mainly focus on things taking place in the religious sphere of influence, although we will pay attention to some things taking place in just the world and with world news. Okay, our first story, this is actually something which I found out about, late last week. Last week, we talked about the upcoming volume called An Introduction to Pronomianism. Similarly, this book just got released. I do not have it yet. It is on my wish list, Amazon wish list, though. A Disciple Named Timothy, Essays in Honor of Tim Hegg on his 75th birthday. Now, I don't want to belabor this too much, but Tim Hegg is mainly the theological mind behind one law or one Torah theology. And back in the mid-2000s, some of Tim Hegg's commentaries, mainly on Hebrews, Galatians, and Romans, did help me work through some of those difficult books of the Bible with various passages. But by 2010, I had a falling out of sorts with Tim Hegg, mainly because I found him to be much more rigid and inflexible with his one law or one Torah theology than was comfortable for me. Also had some conflicts of opinion on the spiritual gifts, and the Lord had another path for us. But I have stayed up to date passively with developments in one law, one Torah theology. And in this case, obviously he is turning or has just turned 75. You can see some of the contributors to this Script, a compiled book. C.M. Hegg, that's his son, Caleb Hegg, Ariel Berkowitz, Benjamin Frostad, Tony Robinson, Rob Van Hoff, Benjamin Zumsky, David Wilbur. Those are some of the same people, not all, but some of the same people who have apparently contributed to An Introduction to Pronomianism. And I have not read this, so I cannot draw any conclusions other than that when you have a script written about you, a theologian, 65, 70, 75, it is an indication that your ministry career, your academic career is winding down. And we can deduce from how some of the names who contributed to this compiled volume also have contributed to an introduction to pronomianism, how more than likely pronomianism as it emerges will be the successor theology to Tim Hegg's one law or one Torah theology, as perhaps a one law 2.0. Now, that's just the way I see it, information. I'm glad this thing has come out. I'll probably have to review this when our ministry updates our commentaries on Hebrews, Galatians, and Romans sometime within the next year or so. But this is an indication more than anything else that Tim Hegg's ministry academic career is winding down, and here are a number of the likely successors, and they are likely to go by pronomian. All right, here's something which I ran across on Instagram. A misconception about Judaism, and this is obviously targeting a lot of evangelicals who are pro-Zionist and pro-Israel. Old Testament Judaism goes to the New Testament, which then goes to Christianity. Old Testament Judaism goes to modern Judaism. The reality, and this is where things get rather complicated. Old Testament Judaism goes to the New Testament, accepts Jesus, baptism, and then becomes Christianity. Old Testament Judaism goes to New Testament, but rejects Jesus, Second Temple destroyed, and then that becomes Talmudic Judaism, and you can see kind of in the graphic there that they have an image which appears to be a pentagram with a goat on it, implying Satanism. And then you have the Israeli flag, and that becomes Zionism, communism, liberalism, feminism, environmentalism, Judeo-Christian, which is considered to be evil, etc. So this is something which is overly simplistic, but we're going to be seeing more and more of this as we get closer to Yeshua's return. Second Temple destroyed, then you have Pharisaical Judaism, which actually developed, which survived, which developed into Rabbinical Judaism. And while it is fair to say that there have been Jewish individuals involved with some of these movements like communism and liberalism and environmentalism, you've got just as many non-Jewish people, more non-Jewish people involved with them as well. But this is the kind of thing which can get passed around, supporting a very anti-Semitic agenda. And, people in the Messianic community need to be aware of it, and they need to take note of it. Now, along with that, here's something else which I encountered in this same vein. This is from a channel on Instagram called Orthodox Masculinity, and this is from the Eastern Orthodox Church. What does the Orthodox Church think about Judaism? So here you have a lot of quotations from different... I'll reload it. Okay, it reloads. You have a number of different quotations from various church fathers like John Chrysostom, St. Basil the Great, St. Gregory of Nyssa, St. John Chrysostom again, and then finally Paul the Apostle, 1 Thessalonians 2:15, where basically the Jews are accursed and they're evil and they're no better than pagans. There are a lot of people right now, a lot of young men in particular, who are converting from Protestantism to Eastern Orthodoxy for whatever reason or series of reasons. And this is the kind of thing which can accelerate some of that. Now, to be fair, one of my family's best friends is Greek Orthodox, and he's a strong supporter of Israel, and he's aware of what our family was called to do. He actually visited us. He lives in Maryland. He visited us when we were exhibiting at the Messiah Conference in Grantham, Pennsylvania, and he asked, what is this conference all about again? And we explained, well, you're familiar with your Bible and how it talks about how the good news, the gospel, is for the Jew first, like these people, and also to the Greek, like you. So not all people in Eastern Orthodoxy are anti-Jewish or anti-Semitic, but we just need to be aware of how this kind of thing circulates and influences a lot of people. From the New York Post, 17 April, so a few days ago, astronomers have discovered a major sign of life and the first hints of an alien world on a distant planet orbiting outside the solar system, according to a new report. I've mentioned the growing theological discipline of astrotheology. What would we do if it were discovered that some form of biological life existed elsewhere in the universe, meaning not on planet Earth? Now, this is the kind of thing, of course, which can change with information. That's the nature of science. But this is the kind of story. It's from the New York Post. It's not from some supermarket tabloid, which will stimulate conversations. And I've got people in my extended family who, they believe that Yeshua, Jesus, is the only way for human salvation, but they definitely believe that God has other stories playing out in the universe. And so this is the kind of thing they would reference to have some lively discussions when we socialize with one another. And younger people are going to be influenced by this more than, I think, older people, because they've been influenced by science fiction, Star Trek, Star Wars, that sort of thing. And how do we best engage with these questions? I think it's required for each of us to start from a place of humility so we don't automatically lose people. There are things about the universe we don't fully understand. We don't have all the information. And everyone should be able to agree that when Yeshua returns, he will reveal things to us about the greater creation we do not know right now. Everyone should agree on that. That's where we start the conversation and where we can engage with others' opinions. Okay, so whether you like it or not, here's another one from Charisma from the 17th of April. 3 end-time secrets the church never hears. And this is apparently taken from Lance Wallnow, who, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't care for that much. But what are the 3 end-time secrets some people might be talking about? Because, as I always say, Charisma is one of the news agencies out there which definitely influences today's Messianic people. Number 1, God didn't send a revival. He sent a reformation. Okay, that's interesting. Number 2, Trump is a modern-day Cyrus. I'm sure some people would agree with that. Other people would strongly disagree with that. But we need to know that there are some people out there who believe Donald Trump is, he's not perfect, but he's like Cyrus, the Persian emperor. He's going to help Israel. He's going to help the believers. Other people think that Trump is either the beast himself or is setting things up for the arrival of the beast. Okay, then number 3, Jesus is returning as the lion, not the lamb. Okay, so I actually agree with, in principle, with numbers 1 and number 3. Number 2, we will have to just let that play out. Another one from the New York Post, the 17th of April. Young people are increasingly converting to Catholicism, with some dioceses reporting a surge in new converts of 30 to 70%. For example, the Diocese of Fort Worth, Texas, so not that far from where I am, saw a remarkable 72% increase from 2023 to 2024. Many of these young new Catholics credit their conversion to factors such as the pandemic, the influence of the internet, and dissatisfaction with what they perceive as quote unquote lax Protestant alternatives. Okay, now how does that affect us as Messianic people? Well, what are these quote unquote lax Protestant alternatives? One of the things I can say for you here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is we've got dozens of non-denominational churches, some of them bearing names like Game Changer Church. And they are very informal. They're very lax. The pastor is not going to be up on the stage, much less a pulpit, but up on the stage wearing a business suit and a tie. And these are things which are meant to entertain seekers more than provide some kind of a structured, formal worship service. Now, there definitely are Protestant traditions which they have a structured worship service with a call to worship, some liturgy, hymns, and organ. The clergy is dressed formally, coats and ties, even robes, because some churches have gone, Protestant churches have gone from that formality to informality. Not a surprise why the more formal worship style of Catholicism and probably also Eastern Orthodoxy is appealing. Now, whether we like it or not, today's Messianic community, much of it is highly influenced by non-denominational, quasi-charismatic Christianity. And they just integrate some, Hebrew praise songs and what have you. This isn't going to affect the Messianic community as much as it could, but we do need to keep tabs on it. All right, from the 17th of April, Trump's White House faith advisor, Paula White, says Christians should be mandated to visit Israel before getting into heaven. And this is an exchange she had with Prime Minister Netanyahu when he visited Washington. And look, I am no fan of Paula White. I'm actually a strong supporter of women in ministry, but no fan of Paula White, no fan of her gospel. I think it is atrocious that she is the one who is out there as a spokesperson. Oh, Christians need to partake of Torah study and a Passover Seder, and they need to go to Israel. Paula White's presentation is going to play into the anti-Jewish, anti-Zionist crowd very, very quickly. Look, I'm in the Messianic movement. I think traveling to Israel, going to Israel is important. But, why Paula White, Trump? Why? From the 19th of April on Instagram, according to a YouGov survey, 1 in 10 Americans believe the earth is flat. Another 9% aren't even sure. All of us at some point or another by now have encountered flat earth. It's something which I remember encountering back in 2014 at an MJAA conference in Grapevine, just north of DFW Airport. Flat earth is the epitome of people who are reading Holy Scripture hyper literally. And it has so many moving parts, in terms of governments, militaries, scientists, the airlines even. Have all these people been bought and paid for to cover up the supposed truth that the earth is flat and not round? Or rather, are we able to see by how many people believe in a flat earth how ignorant and simplistic they truly are? Now, plenty of people in the Middle Ages believed the earth was flat. It's not a salvation issue, but it is a credibility issue. All right, April the 19th. This hit early in the morning. So like when I woke up on Shabbat this past weekend, this is what I encountered. From the Roy's report, breaking, Michael Brown engaged in sexually abusive misconduct, report says. Now, I haven't fully looked at this report yet. This is from the Roy's report. This is one of the main groups which has reported on some of the religious dramas of the past year. So you can access this. You can click on the link and you can look at the report and you can draw your own conclusion. Some people have asked me, what do I think about this? What do I not think about this? What I am actually most upset about and disappointed about is because of all of this, we probably will not see the Messianic Study Bible by Zondervan ever released, which is a project going back to the year 2000 at least, because I was actually given a phone. I was actually called on the phone when I was up at OU. Hey, can you give money to the Messianic Study Bible overseen by Michael Brown? Of course, I'm in college. I have no money. It was supposed to be released this September, October. You can't find that many references to it anymore. And the reason it's been pulled is because Michael Brown was the editor. That's the real thing we should be disappointed, if not incensed about, because this was supposed to be a major apologetic resource. Now, could it be released in a couple of years? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But everyone has to work through these dramas on their own and draw their own conclusion. And that's the best I can give you, mainly because the Messianic community is so small. You know, I've encountered Michael Brown at different events for over 11 years now. So, all right, this is something which, of course, everyone knows by now. I encountered this. I woke up 3 minutes in the middle of the night last night because I got an alert on my phone from Yahoo that Pope Francis had died. The email had been sent out and there'd been 3-minute delay. So this is from, of course, Vatican News. Pope Francis died on Easter Monday, April the 21st, 2025, at the age of 88 at his residence in the Vatican's Casa Santa Marta. So for many months now, people have been following the condition of Pope Francis. Is he going to live? Is he going to die? The Pope has now passed away. And in my lifetime, I've only known of 3 popes: John Paul II, Pope Benedict XVI, and now Pope Francis. And there's going to, of course, be a lot of speculation as to who will succeed him. Will it be someone who is more conservative than he was? Because this Pope was not that conservative. Will it be someone who is more liberal? We don't know, but the speculation is definitely going to continue. And then finally, to close up some of this, this is from the X channel Hermeneutic in a Cloister. And this is just some of the speculation you're going to start seeing. This channel is from a Messianic Jew who is a dispensationalist, very closely associated with the theology of people like Arnold Fruchtenbaum, among others, and Dallas Theological Seminary. So he asks, and which conclave will be influenced by the spirit of the devil to choose one who will arguably become the false prophet? The false prophet, whenever he is chosen, will be the one who will work in close tandem with the coming Antichrist, whoever that likewise might be. So, I mean, people are going to reference, well, there's this prophecy that there are only going to be so many popes, and Pope Francis was the last one. More likely, you're going to see speculation and comments made, well, maybe the next pope is going to be the false prophet of the book of Revelation who will work alongside the anti-Messiah or Antichrist. That's what you're going to encounter a lot of. So, what a time to be alive. What a weekend of news. And of course, we will just continue to follow things for this next week. I think those of you all who were really appreciating the transition after the IAMCS Rabbis Conference, Messianic Insider Theology News Roundup, but we were only doing it once a week for 2.5 hours. This format of going about 30 to 45 minutes now, as it seems, Theology News Roundup every day. I know you all are really appreciating it, and I definitely appreciate the feedback you've given me, the comments. We try to incorporate the comments in succeeding episodes, because I know some of you all don't want your name and your little icon, your graphic featured. All right. That concludes our show for today. As always, on behalf of Outreach Israel Ministries and Messianic Apologetics, I would like to sincerely thank you for your ongoing prayers, encouragement, and donations toward all of our ministry efforts. You can give online at outreachisrael.net/support. We'll see you again tomorrow with another episode of Messianic Insider. Until then, may God bless you, shalom, and take care.